talking about thruples today. Thruples have become a lot more common, at least in sort of the circles that I run in, and there's that show on Peacock, couple the thruple, which I don't know if they're bringing back. I loved season one. I don't know if they're bringing back. It just like goes to show, like you think I thought it was going to be so popular, but I think still there's just a lot of people that are very resistant to polyamory.
You have to text me when it's on again because I still haven't seen it.
I think I don't know if they're bringing it back, but it was great and it was very affirming. And they had a therapist on. I didn't love some of the therapist things that they said, but it was just a great normalization of a couple deciding to take on a third, right? And how fun and exciting and great that can be. And I think that's what we can see in therapy often is like when two people decide to expand their relationship, that it can be such a great and fun thing. I think always with queer therapy, I'm always just reminding people that like this should be fun.
Right, right. And also to let people know, like, actually, this is a thing to work. I mean, this is not just one relationship, it's many relationships. So it does take work, right? So let's talk about some of the things that comes up in our throuple therapy. Um,
Yeah, there's a number of issues. I wrote an article this week just about like issues that tend to be specific to throuples therapies. Not to say that like there are also issues that every relationship deals with, but like if you're thinking about starting throuples therapy, these are some things that probably you want to start thinking about, right? The first being just power dynamics. This is something, power is just kind of that thing that we try to like, I guess, force out of consciousness, except maybe in the bedroom where it's like power becomes a big thing if you're into some form of like, kink or BDSM. But, in a throuple in particular, power dynamics are something you really have to think about, right?
Absolutely. And, a lot of times, like that hierarchy is sort of, if it's not fully in words agreed upon, sometimes there is kind of an agreement. Like maybe this couple was together first, and then the third comes in and naturally doesn't have all of maybe the power to make certain decisions, maybe
Right.
kids involved, right? And but I do want to say that in the therapy space, like each person really has an equal space in that in the working of therapy and working through things. So I did want to point that out.
And that can, even just that, the therapist opening up equal space can bring up a lot for a throuple,
Oh,
right?
well, I mean, there's so many things that, yeah. I mean, I think anybody that's in a throuple right now, it has ups and downs. Like it's a lot of relationship to deal with. And if you're in a smooth spot, yay. And if you're not, that's just growth opportunity, you know.
hmm Yeah, Dan Savage said this I was listening to his podcast last week and he was talking about how, people kind of hate on polyamorous relationships because they sometimes can be a bit chaotic and that gets blamed for, why you shouldn't do them. But actually what polyamorous people are doing is like inviting in some of that chaos of dating, the kind of like risk of dating, which is actually like a really important part of us. We have the part that strives for safety, and then we have the part that strives for like risk and aliveness. And actually, yeah, polyamorous people are courting that sense of like risk a little bit. So there is a little bit more, and there are three people. There's more dynamics. There's a little bit more risk involved, right?
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Mm-mm.
Um, Another thing that comes up, as you say in your article, is triangulation. You want to just talk a second about that?
Yeah, I mean, triangulation is something that can happen in any relationship, really. Like someone upsets you, someone pisses you off. We all do this at some point. You don't go to the person that upset you to say, you upset me. You go to somebody else. You go to a friend. You go to, in this case, you go to the other partner and you start talking about how the other person has treated you poorly. And then easily you and the other partner can start to string together a narrative about the third partner, and then that narrative might at some point get like aggressively thrust onto the unsuspecting third partner. So triangulation is something that you just always want to be monitoring within a throuple.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reason that people do that, they're trying to maybe gain strength or safety in their feelings. They
Hmm.
need to they're needing to have somebody on their side or something, but it's short-term gain for long-term pain. So, I mean, because really it's like you have to go to where the work is, which is with the person that you're having a hard time with, right?
Hmm. Yeah,
And
sorry, go ahead.
no, and in a throuple, oftentimes it's bringing this to both both of the others, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it was bringing me back to the power dynamics thing, which is that power also comes into who gets the emotional space, who can you talk directly to about
Yeah.
impact, right? And so I think with power dynamics, it's like they just have to be brought to light and talked about um, in order to work through them, as opposed to just kind of like pretending that they don't exist, both material power dynamics and also emotional power dynamics.
Yeah. 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 Exactly. Exactly. What are some other things that come up in thruples? Or
Oh, just I don't know if it was just me, but I didn't hear the first like 5 seconds of what you just said. It like sort of, oh, it's saying minor net is unstable. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine.
Okay, let's just charge forward then.
Yeah. I was just asking like what else comes up in throuples therapy?
Yeah, I mean this is a big one. So I feel like this is what you typically see when you read something about polyamory, jealousy. And the opposite of jealousy, what many of us would call the opposite of jealousy in polyamory is compersion, which is the feeling of joy, excitement, satisfaction at witnessing or hearing about your partner being with somebody else romantically or sexually. Um, so jealousy is, I mean, yeah, where would you start on the subject of jealousy?
Yeah, I kind of love this work because if you have just two partners, it's like there's kind of this unsaid agreement, like we're never going to make each other jealous because that is just wrong.
Hmm.
And so
Hmm.
actually inviting the situation of jealousy much closer to home, all the way into home, right? And so now, like, we're not going to pretend that certain things don't arise. My own feeling like I want to be the only one. I want to be on top. I want you to think that all of these things. So you're actually inviting in more opportunities to look at yourself, to
Hmm.
communicate with others. I mean, it's a big one, but I think it's incredible work when people do that.
Yeah, when you can actually open up the space for jealousy, I guess I would classify it as like one of our, sometimes it feels like more of a petty emotion, like the ones that we just want to brush aside, but that we feel. And when you can actually invite that into therapy space, and yeah, thruples, they typically set up a more honest foundation for that emotion to come in. It can lead to such deep, meaningful work about like what really kind of ties back to earlier attachment trauma, or like it really ties into like deeply held values of yours that you might not even realize are there. So there is great opportunity in inviting jealousy into throuples therapy. And
Yeah.
it's going to happen. It's definitely going to happen. I mean, your partner is
I
with
don't
somebody else.
I don't think there's I mean, I really think it's one of the worst feelings. Jealousy is rough.
It's rough. It's rough. It's rough. It's rough. And also when it's disembodied, it's like when it's dissociated, it's even more rough. So it's like it's gonna be rough regardless. Can you invite it in an embodied way?
Right. But I guess what I'm saying is that when you're knowingly stretching yourself and you're not shying away from uh things are going to be hard sometimes. I
Mm.
just feel like there's so much opportunity for growth and expansion.
Yeah. I mean, I think most thruples that we see have that kind of attitude, but you also do see thruples and polyamorous people where they just really want to be in that enlightened poly state where it's like nothing, it's all good. I love that my partner loves other people. And it's like that is great if you authentically feel that way because you've gotten that way through like doing some work. But if you're actually just bypassing the parts of you that care, then it's going to turn into problems.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of true at the beginning of any relationship, right? It's all
Yeah.
very lovely.
Yeah. So I guess going more into like uh material things in life, logistical things in life. Thruples have to deal with navigating life events. So just the first two that come to mind are a wedding where you get a plus one. Um, and this kind of leads into the next point. So maybe we could do both of these together, which is coming out. I'm also thinking about a funeral or some event where there's like older family members
Right.
there who or just people in the family that are not going to be affirming of thruples and polyamory. And so really decisions have to be made really carefully in this area to preserve, the feelings of everyone and the integrity of the thruple while thinking about safety.
Yes, right. So in all of these things that you mentioned, it's really this structure that is going against what society is set up for, what is looked at as acceptable, and each person in the throuple is going to have their own feelings and relationship to that,
Mhm.
to bucking the system, to being more true to oneself. So, one person in the throuple could be like, fuck them. I'm not,
Mhm.
and another one might be like, yeah, but there's only a plus one. So we have to make a decision. It's like everybody's going to have their own relationship to what it's like to be operating outside of the system, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So that kind of leads into coming out. And I was thinking of that when you were talking, it reminded me of a personal experience I had when I was in a throuple where the two other members of the throuple had been together for a while and I joined the relationship and I was younger. And so there was a point where one of the members told me that he wasn't able to tell his mom about me.
Mm.
Um, and so this was a coming out decision, also a life event decision. Um, and so that part of me, being in a younger generation was like, yeah, fuck that. Like we can be who we are. But then I really had, once I did that work, I came to really respect that decision, that she was 90 and and it was okay. And I didn't need to be out in that environment, I didn't need to be out in that environment. It wasn't really impacting me that much, actually. But there was a really careful kind of negotiation that happened there that involved the feelings of all three of us, and all of our feelings were different.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, perfect example. Mhm.
I think that brings us sort of to the end of the list. I had, just decisions about contraction or expansion. Like, so a throuple might want to expand into a quad, or often the couple will want to go back to being a couple, and so we sometimes attach, uh, meaning to how long it lasts, but like the throuple might not, the throuple might sort of turn back into a couple or it might expand to a quad. And those are tough decisions as well that take a lot of care.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we are taught that the real things uh, are material everlasting. And the truth is that nothing is materially everlasting. And so every relationship, every plant, it's like has its own life, has its own lifespan, really. And yeah, so I think it's really important. I've ushered couples apart. I haven't actually ushered a throuple apart, but like you have to respect also just everybody's growing needs and what it means to feel good and yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. I guess I'll just put a little plug. Um, our practice, Expansive, is we really kind of focus on this. We focus on being affirming of all relationship structures. And so we love when thruples come to see us and yeah, we welcome any thruples or polyamorous polycules of any size.